So in this lesson, we looked at what we can do with functions. So now we're actually going to create a brand new function. And I'm just going to call it add me. And I'm going to expect a couple arguments. So I'm going to have A and B. And hoping that they get passed, expecting them to get passed through. And so now what I'm going to do, C equals A plus B. And another thing with JavaScript, you can do calculations. So A plus B, A minus B, A times B, and so on. So actually maybe we're going to do A times B to make it a little bit more interesting. And then also within a function, if you want to get these values returned back, so we saw in the previous lecture that we were setting a value of B, but when we declared that value, we could only actually access that value within B. And so if you wanted to actually return back a value, so we could do a variable C, almost forgot to declare that variable, so we can return back C. So what this is going to do, when this function gets run, it's actually going to return back a value of C. So this gives us another way to do functions where we could do add me, and all we have to do is put in a number 7 and 8. And just like the other functions, we can just reuse this over and over again. So I'm going to put some bigger numbers and some other numbers. And so what it's doing, it's actually returning these values. And we're actually not going to be writing them out, so we have to console log out these values. This is the same thing as using it within our code. So if we were writing these out, we could also do document write, and we would get these calculations. But for now, what we're going to do, we're just going to do it within the console. Go back out, refresh our page, and we see that JavaScript performs these calculations. So in the first one, we had 7 times 8. It returned the value of 56. The other one, it was a higher value, so it returned the value of that multiplication, and so on. So we get to begin to see how we can actually use JavaScript. And we can run this function at any time. So even within the console, I can do 9 times 9. And I should get a return value of 81 from the JavaScript function. So this gives us the ability to start really energizing JavaScript and get working with JavaScript returning back values. So this won't work well if we've just got it here, because we're not actually, so even if I was to do add me here, and if I pass 5 times 5, just show you what happens. So do you think this is going to work? If I click the button, I'm passing 5 and 5, and I'm clicking it, but I don't actually see anything happening, and that's because we're not actually outputting it anywhere. So that on click is actually going through and running this function, but we're not seeing anything happening because we're not outputting anywhere. We're just returning that value of C, which doesn't mean anything within that click value. So we could console log out C, or we could document write it. So maybe we can just do console log. So you have to always make sure when you're using return and you're using it in this fashion that you're actually able to actually see the function get performed. Or if you just wanted to have a simple calculation and have maybe another function that outputs it into the console, so we could have an incrementing value of it. So here we've declared A as this value, so maybe we're just going to do D. And every time it gets clicked, D will increment. And now we're going to do times D, or just plus D. And we're going to console log out D. And also we're going to do C. And maybe just to be exact, we'll do a D equals here as well. So now when I click the button, what do you think is going to happen? Whenever I console log it out, we see that D, because it's a global value, it's incrementing, and even though we're still passing 5 and 5, our calculation is incrementing because this value of D, this constant global value of D, that we're not redeclaring a new value for it, so it is actually incrementing globally. And again, this is a great way to do some calculations using JavaScript. There's quite a bit here to work with and a bunch of different operators that you can use in order to interact with JavaScript. So I encourage you to try this out for yourself, pass various values to functions, make some different calculations, get the return on the calculations, and see what you can get JavaScript to do.